Hi, this is Kevin. Welcome to part 3 of my tutorial for the Authentication and Authorization assignment for the EasyU project. In part 3, we're going to modify the Course Info app to enforce the permission scheme. You'll remember at the end of part 2, we'd installed the permission scheme. We had created users and linked them into the groups that sort of enabled the permission scheme. And that permission scheme worked great for those users in the admin app, but not in the Course Info app because we had not modified the app to enforce the permission scheme. And we're going to do that now. Okay? So let's take a look at our code. The first thing that we need to do is, when we're talking about adding the code, we're going to have to change the class header on each of our view classes. And we're going to have to add a mix-in for login and a mix-in for permission. Okay? And that's going to be pretty easy to do. Okay? Let's just get our code up and go to views.py. And we've got a whole bunch of views here. I think we got about 40 some views. And something like that. We have a whole lot of views in any case. The only thing that these views are subclassing at this point are the views themselves and where's instructor list? At the list views that are paginated are also subclasses of page links mix-in. Okay, and we have two new mix-ins that we want to subclass. And let me show you the code for this. Okay. So I'm copying it out of my already baked version. And here's what I do. I go to the beginning of the formal parameter list here inside the parens, and I copy it right in the beginning. Okay? So I'm adding login required mix-in, permission required mix-in, and I'm putting that in front of whatever is already there. And each of those are going to need an import, so I'm going to accept the import for login required and permission required. And the thing to remember here is that in Python, as kind of contrasted with a more formal language like Java, we can subclass more than one superclass. In Java, for instance, you can only be a subclass of one other class. Okay? But in Python, you can be a subclass of as many classes as you would like to. And in order to keep that from being, kind of crazy, we typically subclass one kind of proper class from our class hierarchy, like list view. And then every other thing that we subclass is a mix-in. And mix-ins give classes extra powers, right? So they give them capabilities that we want to add across the class hierarchy. Okay? In other languages, these are done in some other ways. In Java, this is done with these things called interfaces. But here in Python, mix-ins. And mix-ins are pretty darn cool. Okay, so we're adding this login required mix-in and permission required mix-in to the formal parameter list of all the class headers. So I'm going to do another one, okay? And I copy enough right here so I even get my extra space. So I'll copy that and I'll just click right before detail view and then paste it, and there you go. So now I've done two. I'm going to turn you loose to do the rest of these on your own, and I'm not going to make you watch me. So I'm going to pause while I do the rest and you do the rest, and then we'll start up again. Okay, we're back. And one thing that I did that I'm not sure that you had a chance to do is it's really important to make sure that you have these two superclasses on your header and for each of the classes. Okay, and here's what you do. I'm going to pause again, and when you go back and check every one to make sure that you have them, because if you don't, well, then it's not going to enforce your authentication and authorization scheme, and it'd be really easy in your testing to miss one thing. So I'm going to pause, you're going to check, and then we'll meet back here when you're done. Here we go. Okay, we're back. That's good. Now, we need to add one more line of code to each of the view classes. What's that going to look like? Well, I'm going to copy the first one out of my already baked version. Okay, and it's going to look like this. So there's an instance variable that we're populating. It's called permission required. Okay, and it configures the permission required mix-in. And what we want to do is we want to say which permission in the permission scheme does this user have to have access to in order for us to let them run the view. Okay, if they don't have permission to run that view and they try to, they're going to get a page that says 403 forbidden. Really ugly. Okay, well, we don't want that. Okay, now, as I said, we've got about 30 or 40 of these view classes. Do we really want to figure out what each of these are? Well, I can tell you that I didn't. So I found an automated way to come up with this code to add to each of the views. Okay, and how did I do it? Well, first, let's open up SQLite Studio. Okay, and I want to make sure we're working on the proper database, not the practice one that I used to get ready for this, or the old version. We're in EasyU database. That's the real one. And let's just look. Let's look at auth group. So these are the groups. Those are the groups. Okay, and let's look at the users. Auth user. Okay, click on the data. Yeah, here are the users. They're all set. Okay. And if we look at auth group permissions, let's look at that. That should be populated, right? Okay, and you'll remember that I was saying that there was this thing called Django content type. There was a table for that, and if we go look at the data for that, we can see references to each of the tables. So what did I do? Well, we have all the information in here. I just wrote a query for us. Okay, so let's open a window that we can put the query into. All right, and to do that, I always kind of look around for the icon. Oh, up here on the toolbar, there's like a scroll with a pencil. I think that's it. OpenSQL Editor. That's it. Okay, so we have that. Now, are we going to write the query right here? No, we're not. If you look at the starter files that I gave you for part 3, you'll see that we have a file under queries, SQLite query for authentication and authorization part 3. Well, that's us. So let's open this with some file, with some plain old text editor. I'm going to open it with TextMate, okay, which is, one of the popular editors for the Mac. And we're going to look at this. And here's the code, and I'm going to do a select all and a copy. Right, now I'm done with that, and I'm done with the files, and now I'm just going to paste that right in here. Okay, and what we're doing here is we are building these statements that we want. Okay, so let's run the query, which we do with this blue play button here. Let's click on that. And here are all the statements. So the permission required statements are right here. That's pretty cool. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start on row 1, and I'm going to highlight all the way down to the bottom. And I'm just selecting the column that has the data that we want. I'm going to right click and copy. Okay, so that's all the code that we want. And now I'm going to open an editor again. Now, another text editor that I like on the Mac is called Sublime Text. So why don't we open that? I'm going to paste this all in. Okay, so these are all of them for all the tables. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break them into groups. So you can see it's add course, change course, delete course, view course, and then we go on to instructor. So I'm just going to add a blank line after course, a blank line after instructor, a blank line after period, blank line after registration, blank line after section, and blank after semester, and a blank after student. And there already is a blank of sorts after year. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this off to the side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these out because I'm going to use them up. I'm going to see that I've actually used them up. So the first two of our views for a particular table are list and detail. They both take this view permission. So I'm just going to highlight that one for course info view course, and I'm going to cut it. Okay, and I'm going to pull off everything and get back to my pie chart. Okay, now let's just pretend that we didn't have the code under instructor list that we have. I'm just going to highlight that line and get rid of it. Okay, all right. All right, so what I can do for instructor list and for instructor detail, right up here under the class header where we have these assignments to instance variables, we just want to add this at the bottom. So we get a carriage return and we paste. And then we come down to the next one and we get a carriage return and we paste. Okay? And that's a lot of cutting and pasting, but at least it's not a lot of typing. Okay? And this is the kind of thing that I'm hoping that you could take this same query and use it when you're trying to generate this kind of code for the application that you're doing for the final project. This isn't a typing class, so I don't want you to do any more typing than you have to. And using these kind of tools is a good practice. And this class is about a lot of things, including good practices. I see that in terms of good practices, we're missing a blank line there. Yeah. Okay, so instructor list, instructor detail. Okay, now the next one's instructor create. Let's pull this thing back on. Okay, instructor. Oh boy, have I done bad things? Yeah, I've done bad things for sure. Okay, first of all, let's see. I'm not working on instructor. I was taking the thing for a course. That's not going to work at all, is it? Okay, so I could stop this recording and go back and start it again. Or we could use this as an example of the kind of things that go wrong that you have to recover from. So we'll consider this a learning opportunity. Okay, one problem. I got rid of a line in here that I shouldn't have. So I'm just going to undo it. I do it on the Mac with a Command Z. So a Command Z is going to bring that one back. Okay, so that's been fixed. Now let's go back to instructor list. Okay, we gave it the wrong permission. Get rid of that. Instructor detail, we gave that the wrong permission. Get rid of that. Okay, now come back here. It's instructor that we want. So we want instructor view. Boy, that was silly. Okay, and I like to cut these so that I see them getting used up. So instructor list is going to get instructor view or view instructor. Instructor detail is going to get view instructor. Okay, instructor create. Okay, we don't have a create. Okay, we have an add instead. Instructor add. We're going to cut that. Okay, and we're going to put that right under instructor create. Okay, instructor update is change. And we'll cut that out of there so that we can see our work. Okay, that's instructor change. And the last one's instructor delete. Okay, and that one has the right name, delete instructor. And let's cut that. Okay, and that's going to go right up here. Okay, pretty good. Now, I'm not going to have you watch me do all of these, right? We have all the rest. And I just want to point out that there are two tables in here that we've got permissions for, and it's important that we have them because we use them in the admin app. They're for the period table and the year table, okay? But we're not going to use those in our views because our app doesn't have pages for those tables. We're going to expect our scheduler or the sysadmin to go into the admin app and change those tables. So let's just get rid of these in their entirety right now. We don't need the entries for the year table. We don't need the entries for the period table. Okay, and we got that. So together, we've done instructor. You should do course, registration, section, semester, and student. And when you're done, you should be out of these code pieces. Okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here. I'm going to do mine. You're going to do yours. Okay? You're not going to have to watch me do mine. And we're going to pause, and when we're done, we'll come back. Okay? Pause. Okay, we're back. So as you see, I just added the permission required line for registration delete, which is the last of these. And my editor that had all that permission required code is now empty. So I'm happy about that. So let's take stock of what we've done so far from this part 3. We've done item 1. We added the mix-ins. We've done item 2. We've added the permission required code. Are we ready to test? Well, let's make sure that we have a couple of things having to do with the logging in and the logging out stuff correct. We probably already did this, but in the urls.py for the high level one that's in the configuration directory, we want to make sure that the pattern that redirects the root URL redirects it to the about URL pattern, because some of the people who log in are not going to be able to go to the section list because they're not authorized to see it. Okay, so let's just go look. We probably did that in a prior part. Oh, I did that backwards. I wanted to pull off the instructions and leave my PyCharm. Okay, so here we are. Let's go to urls.py in the configuration directory, and the first of the rules is for the root path, the root URL when you type in just the domain name. Okay, and we are redirecting to the about URL pattern, which is going to take us to the about page. So that one is already done. Okay, if yours isn't already done, make sure it's properly set. Okay, the one after that, in settings.py, confirm that the login redirect URL is set to the about URL pattern. Well, we should have done that in a prior part too. How many times can I pull off the wrong tool? But let's make sure that we have it. Okay, so go to settings.py. Okay, and we were looking for login redirect URL, login redirect URL, about URL pattern. Okay, that one's done too. If yours isn't done, get it set. Okay, how many more of these do we have? Well, the next one, in settings.py, set login URL to reverse lazy login URL pattern. Okay, let's look at that. Okay. So we're in settings.py. That's not set yet. We didn't do that in a prior part. So I'm going to go get my code from the already baked version, and I'll show it to you, and you can type it into yours. Okay, so we need an import for reverse lazy. Okay, login URL gets assigned reverse lazy login URL pattern. Okay, well, that one's done. And then we got one more that we have to add. And that's this number 6. In settings.py, add session expire at browser close to true. Okay, let's do that, and I'll tell you what that's going to solve for us. So we're going to add this one down at the bottom. We're going to need a blank line under it. And let me copy this from my already baked version and put it in here. Okay. Session expire at browser close equal true. Okay, now you may not have seen this previously, but when we were logging in and logging out, which we've been doing for a while because we've been using the admin out, right? And we've been logging in and logging out with tester. If we logged in and if we closed the browser, okay, and even turned our computer off, okay, and then we turned our computer on and we opened the browser, and then we open the application, that user would still be logged in. Why is that? Well, because by default, Django controls whether a user is logged in or not with cookies. Okay, and it doesn't clear the cookies. So if you were to close the browser and then open the browser again, the cookie would still be there and you would be logged in. Well, you and I know that it's probably a problem, especially on shared computers. If some other user were to go to the same site, they'd be logged in already. We don't want that. So what this does is it forces, when we close the browser, even if we forget to log out, it will not allow that cookie to persist, and it will not allow that person to be logged in. Okay, and I'll show you a little bit more about how that works in a couple of minutes. Okay. Very good. So we're down to number 7. Test the app. Observe that the user interface options are still shown even when they cause 403 forbidden. So we have done a lot of work here, and we've tightened up the app. So users should not be able to get to things that they're not allowed to get to. Okay, but one of the things we're going to discover now is that they can still see the options, which leads to unhappy outcomes. Okay, so let's go test it and see what we have. So we've got to start up the development server. Okay, and we're going to open the browser. All right, we're not logged in. Okay, so let's test that sticky login, right? So let's log in as tester, okay, and give our secret password. Okay, and now we're logged in, and you can see that we're logged in as tester. Okay, now the behavior of this is a little different on Windows and Mac. Okay, I'm on a Mac here. In the Mac, it's possible to close your browser and not stop the browser program. Okay, I don't think that's easily done on Windows. If you click on the X to close the browser, it's closed, it stops the program. Okay, so here on the Mac, if we just come up here and click on the red piece of candy up here in the upper left, we'll close the browser. Okay, but if we open it again, and on the Mac, you can look at my browser. We're using Firefox. You'll see a little dot here. It shows that it's still running. So if I click on here, and I go back to my, oh, sorry, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do this by clicking on the link. You can see I'm still logged in. So how do you keep this from happening on the Mac? Well, you actually have to quit the browser. Okay. So if we quit the browser on the Mac now, and we click on here, it should open a browser for us. Okay, and we're not logged in. Okay. This distinction between closing the program, closing the browser, and quitting the browser is not something that you need to worry about in Windows 10. Okay, so we've solved that problem, sticky logins. All right, we should have enforced the authorization and the authentication and authorization scheme. So let's look. I'm not logged in, okay? I should only be able to go to the About page. I'm on the About page. It seems to be happy. Let me click on Instructors. It wants me to log in, okay? All right, that's nothing too bad, okay? Sections, it wants me to log in. Courses, it wants me to log in. Semesters, it wants me to log in. Students, it wants me to log in. Registrations, it wants me to log in. The only thing I don't have to log in for, About. Okay. All right. What if I log in as one of my users who's able to do things? Okay, so let's log in as the clerk. They should be able to see things. They should be able to do the list and the detail, but they should not be able to. They should not be able to do the rest of the functions. So I'm logged in as the clerk. Okay. If I click on instructors, that's fine. Sections, courses, semesters, students, registrations. Oh, something went wrong with registrations. Looks like I've got something wrong with registrations. I am going to I am going to pause and fix that, and then I'll let you know what was wrong, okay? Here's the pause. Okay, well, I left off one of my permission required. So I put the permission onto the detail page, but not the list. So let's just copy that and click off of that so it saves, and come back here and go to registrations, and that problem has been solved. Okay, so let's go back to instructors. Okay, now the clerk should only be able to see things, but now the clerk has action buttons. Okay, so it has a create new instructor action button. We click on it. 403 forbidden. Now, in terms of the rules and best practices of interaction design, in our current day, it's considered bad practice to show options in the user interface and allow a user to click on them and then to complain. If a user is not allowed to do something, that option should not be shown to them. So the problem is not the 403 forbidden. The code is doing its job of protecting the function. The problem is that we're showing the button to this user. Okay. Likewise, if we go down to the detail page, it has an edit instructor button and a delete instructor button, and neither of those are going to work either. So edit instructor 403 forbidden, delete instructor 403 forbidden. Okay, So that's the problem, okay? Uh, we're showing options in the user interface that of places where you're not allowed to go, okay? And that's bad practice. So here's what we want to do. With respect to the nav bar, we only want to show the options that this user is allowed to do. Okay, or if you're not logged in as a user, well, then we only want to show about. If you are a coworker, if you're the coworker user, you should only see about. Okay, and then when we get to a page, um, if we're not allowed to click on the button and go somewhere and do something, then we shouldn't see the button. We shouldn't see the buttons. We shouldn't see buttons or links or anything else in the user interface that we're not allowed to do. To show that to users and then to prevent them from doing it and complaining with 403 forbidden, that is an interaction design, a usability violation. Okay, it's a very ugly thing to do. Okay, so now we've got everything working pretty well here. It's probably um, important, to log in as all the users, like scheduler. Let's see what they can do. Make sure that that's right. So the scheduler, the instructors, they can do everything. The sections, they can do everything. The courses. The students, they shouldn't be able to do everything. So this should give us a 403 forbidden. It does. And the registration's the same thing. 403 forbidden. So it looks like our scheme is properly enforced. We just have a usability problem. We're going to have to hide links and hide buttons depending upon what the permissions are that the user has. Okay, let's close the browser and let's go back and work on this. Okay, now how do you fix this? You fix this by adding code into the pages. Okay, now let's take a look at the code I gave you in the starter file. So these, the navigation links are in base.html, okay? Then every list page and every detail page have buttons that need to be suppressed under proper circumstances. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to highlight all these templates. Okay, this isn't all the templates, but just the ones that we have to revise. And I'm going to copy those. All right, and then I'm going to go into PyCharm and find my templates and open them and right-click on Course Info and paste. And it says copy specified files. Yeah, that looks like right. Okay. Overwrite. Well, I've got a bunch of them. I'm going to pick overwrite for all, and it overwrote them all. Okay. So let's look at some of the code that we got. The first one that we did was base.html. Okay. And what have we done here? Well, we have found the links. Okay, where are the nav links? Well, they're right here in the nav section. And we've surrounded each of these with an if and if. Okay. So we say if perms course info view instructor. So if we have this permission, then we're going to put out the link. Okay. What if we don't? Well, we're not going to put out the link. Okay. One of the nice things, this is in our template, right? Did our view have to put this into the context? It did not. Okay. If you go back and look at all the views, they don't do anything with this perms object. Okay, uh, the the Django infrastructure makes that available in our template uh, as a standard feature of templates. Pretty cool. So we don't have to go back and explicitly put these things into the context in order to be able to use them in the template. So we've got one, um, we checked for view instructor, we checked for view section, view course, view semester, view student, view registration. Okay. Now, what about the about link? Not protected. There's no if code around that. So no matter what, we're going to get the link for about. Okay, that's how we fix that. Let's look how we fixed the instructor list. Instructor list. Okay. We've got two buttons. I'm sorry, instructor list has one button. This create new instructor. It is now it's in its own block. Okay, and then on top of that, it is in an if. Okay, so if we have the permission course info add instructor, then we'll get an add instructor button. If we don't see the button. Isn't that nice? And now let's look on instructor detail. Okay. We've got the same thing here. We say if perms, here's the first one. Okay. If we have course info change instructor authorization, then we're going to get the button for edit instructor. If we've got the perms course info delete instructor authorization, then we're going to get the delete instructor button. If not, it's just not going to show up. Okay, so we've done that for all the tables. I'm not going to go through, the list and the detail for all of them, but we've done it for all of them. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we've made these changes. Let's check our instructions. It says replace base.html template with the new version that hides the navigation links. We did that. Replace all the lists.html and detail.html templates with new version that hides links and buttons in the UI for unauthorized users. Okay, we think we did that. And now test the app and observe that the user interface options are shown only to users when they are authorized. Okay, and that should be it. Let's test it. Okay. I've got a problem. Okay. Isn't that nice? Well, I am going to fix that. And while I'm fixing it, I'm going to pause you and I'll be right back. Okay. So I figured out what this was. Since the last time I rewrote the course, we have changed the way that we do static files. So let's go look at, it doesn't like a code on the about page. Okay, let's look at about.html. Okay, extends that. Oh, I know what our problem was. In our base.html, okay, I forgot that the old version, which I copied in here from my old thing, it said load static files. We don't say that anymore. In modern Django, oh, I don't know what I did. I did something horrible here, so I'm going to undo, cancel that. Yeah, I don't know what I did. Undo copy files. Okay, well, so I've got to change it. When we're done, it should say load static. So I've got something wrong with my starter files. So I'm going to fix this. And when we come back, it's going to be all fixed and we're going to do testing. I apologize for this, but this is just hard. As you well know, it's hard to keep all the details straight. So here's the pause. Okay, I've fixed the mistake. Um, and the mistake that I had was in the version of this base.html page that I had in my starter files. It said load static files, which is the old way we did it instead of load static. Okay, and now I've got everything changed. Now we're ready to test it again. I don't have anybody logged in. I'm at the About page. If I log in, uh, let's log in as the clerk. Okay, because they can see things, but they can't do much, right? All right, so let's look at the clerk. They can see everything, okay, but for the instructors, there's no button to add, okay, and when we go to the detail page, there are no buttons, okay, so that's good, and we'll just do registrations as well, so no button to add a new registration, no buttons on the detail page. That looks good. Okay, so that looks like it's fine. So we're going to log out as the clerk. Now look, when we're logged out, okay, we only see About. It's the only place that we can go. Okay, so let's log in as the coworker. Remember, they're not able to do anything because they're logged in our app. Messed up my secret password. Here we go. And what do they get to do when they're logged in? About. That's it. Okay. And let's test one other one while we're here. Let's test registrar. So the registrar put their password in. Okay. So they can see everything. Okay. If it's an instructor, they can't, they can only see instructors, they can't do anything with them. Same for sections, same for courses and semesters. But for students, they can add a student, and we changed the code so that the add buttons are over here on the right hand side. I forget exactly what we did to change that, but we think that that's a good idea, I think. So we have that there. It's not kind of interrupting things there. And then if we go to a detail page, we've got this edit and delete on the same row. I think we had them over top of each other before. We kind of cleaned that up to make that look better. And if you go to do an edit, you can really do an edit. And if you go to do a delete, you really do a delete. So that seems to be working just fine. Okay, and then we log out. All right, So what we have here is an application with a fully implemented. At first, we designed the scheme for authentication and authorization. All right, that's the first thing that we did. And then the second thing that we did is that we created the groups and the users, and we populated the permissions to enable the scheme. And we could see that it worked in the admin app. And the third thing that we did is that we made the changes in our app, the course info app, so that it enforce the permission scheme in a modern way where we're not showing things to people that we're not going to allow them to do. Now, I want to show you one more thing, okay? If you do this authentication and authorization the right way, it can't be broken by typing into the address bar, okay? So we're not logged in, right? So we're not entitled to go to the instructor page. So if we just put instructor here, it's going to ask us to log in. It's not going to allow us to do that, okay? And this is going to be true of all of them. If we had asked to go to registrations, same deal. What if we're logged in and we're not able to do this? So let's log in as the coworker. They're not really able to see or do anything at all. Okay. Okay, so we're logged in. Okay. So we're not going to get a login page, I don't think. We're probably going to get a 403 forbidden. So let's try to go to instructor 403 forbidden. Okay. So if somebody tries to defeat our authentication and authorization scheme, okay, actively by typing into the address bar and trying to spoof the URL, they will see a 403 forbidden page, but they won't get to this. Like what if we wanted to go to a detail page for course number 2? We can't do that either. Okay, all that stuff that we did several weeks ago where we didn't have the links and we were typing the URLs in, we can't do that anymore. Okay, now could we do it for something that we're allowed to do? Sure, we could type in the about page. We can go to the about page, that's fine. Okay, so I just want you to know that when I test your work on this assignment and when I test your work on your final project, I will actually try to break the authentication and authorization scheme by typing into the URL. Okay, so if you only hide the options that they're not allowed to do, and you don't prevent these things from running by going to views.py and adding these two mix-ins and populating the permission required, I'm going to find out that your implementation of authentication and authorization does not work. Okay? So A fully implemented authentication and authorization scheme prevents users from doing what they're not supposed to do, and it hides the things that they're not supposed to do in the user interface. And if they try to defeat that by typing into the address bar, it sends them to a 403 forbidden page. Okay? So that is it. This is all done. It's ready for you to do this part. Good luck, and I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.